it's Lindsay from My Crafty Plans. Welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, welcome. It's finally time. I am ready to set my annual goals for 2024. I am so excited and cannot wait to share this process with you again this year. If you don't already know, I will be using the MakseLife Goal Planner for 2024. This will be my third year in the MakseLife system, and specifically, I will be using the quarterly companion notebooks. I do have an overview video of the MakseLife system that really digs into the specifics of the goal setting planner and all of the different options available. If you want to check that out, I will leave it linked in the description below. For today, we're going to really dive into that annual goal setting process. I have a few things on my desk here. First is my new folio with my actual quarterly companion notebooks. I'm going to push this off to the side. We're actually not going to need this today. These are the places where I will be setting my monthly goals and my weekly actions throughout the year. They're all tucked in here together for right now. But what I just have already taken out of that is this first companion notebook, which is the annual goals notebook. It's the one with the pinstripe cover. Regardless of which colorway you chose for your quarterly companion notebooks, the pinstripe cover is the same. This goal setting process is also the same one that's available in all their planners and also as a series of free printables on their website. We will be working through this notebook in today's video. I also have my 2023 reflections workbook here. I worked on this previously and I shared a reflections vlog style video as well. I will also link that down in the description below, but you can check that out. That video was pretty recent. I've also got my annual goals from last year just in case I want to reference it. So you can see that was kind of like the same looking workbook here, but it is for 2023. And I also have a few of the free printables that I've used for just supplemental help. I find it's easier to have a rough draft and then to transfer things into the notebook. That way this notebook stays looking pristine and wonderful throughout the year. I've got some free printables that I used as basically worksheets before writing in this notebook, which I have not written in anything in my annual goals notebook yet. A lot of this video is going to be done voiceover style. We're going to work through this book together in sections, and at the beginning of every section, I will just pop back on here to walk you through what we're going to do next, and then I will go back to the voiceover for the actual work. One, that will keep this video a more manageable length, but two, it also helps me really focus on the process while I'm actually writing my goals and things like that. So this is the annual goals workbook. You have your little cover page here with space to write your name, then a little welcome note from the Moxie team and Sierra, who is the founder of MakseLife. If this is your first year in the system, I highly recommend reading every single one of these pages and giving them a really close read so that you can really feel very familiar with the system. But this basically just gives you everything you need to get started and outlines the steps of their goal setting system, which is compass assessment, setting intentions, annual goals and vision, then monthly goals and weekly actions, monthly reflections, and quarterly review. So in today's video, we're going to be working on these first three steps here. We're going to do the compass assessment. I'm going to set my intentions, and then we're going to work on my annual goals. Numbers 4 and 5 are the work you do throughout the year, and I do share that here on my channel all year long. I have a monthly goal setting video every single month, and then I share the weekly actions periodically in my weekly planning routine videos, so you can definitely check that out. I've also got a 2023 playlist that has every single one of my goal setting videos from last year, and I will make another one for this new year where this will be the first video. So the first step here is the compass assessment. In the MakseLife system, you set goals in 8 categories. They are personal, fun and recreation, work and learning, family and relationships, health and wellness, spiritual and personal growth, financial and physical environment. Each of them has a little color code there. I also have the Moxie markers, which are the highlighters in those colors, and the dot markers all match perfectly. Can't wait to bring those in as well. And then step 1 here is the compass assessment. I actually took this on a scratch piece of paper and took some notes. That way I can just kind of copy it in pretty neatly here. But this is a great tool to really help you think about your life and think about your life in those life areas. I find this really helpful for setting the goal setting process, and I will only be taking the compass assessment once per year. I will be using this, you use this life compass scoring rubric throughout the year, but I only take the assessment once per year. I did that last year. It worked super well. We'll be doing it again this year. You may notice that my scores at the start of the year seem totally different from where they ended last year. I basically do a complete recalibration of my scoring every single year so that I can grow again throughout the year. I tend to be a person who scores myself pretty highly. That's just kind of how my brain works. Resetting my scores at the beginning of the year is really helpful to the process. After the assessment, we're going to work through the intentions page. and my word of the year, which I'm super excited about. Then I will pause there and walk you through the actual goal setting pages. I'm not going to read the individual questions here. Again, this is available as a free printable on the MakseLife website, so you can get this compass assessment regardless of whether you have a MakseLife planner, and I highly recommend it. It's just a really interesting exercise, even if you aren't using MakseLife for goal setting. It just really makes you think about your life in different ways than you had before. I really love the compass assessment. Definitely the most I got out of it was the first time I ever took it back when I was starting to set goals for the first time. And then I took it so many times throughout that year that it really felt like diminishing returns. So for the past year, again, like I said, I haven't taken it all year. So I felt really renewed, and like I didn't remember the questions when I had taken them. So it was really, really helpful this year. It definitely gave me more ideas for the goal setting. I try not to worry too much about the scores or like focus on the difference between a 9 and an 8 and a 7 and a 6. I just kind of go with my gut, and then I'm just going to subjectively round them up or down for the start of the year assessment, just kind of based on where I'm at overall with the category. I've gotten really comfortable with subjectively scoring myself, which I think is a really important tool. Again, I try not to focus so much on the individual number and just kind of how I'm feeling compared to how I was feeling. That being said, for me, because I tend to score myself so high, it's important that I recalibrate this at the beginning of the year. That way I can still see growth, because otherwise it's just like, oh, I'm going to go like 9.1, 9.2, and then that just gets really frustrating in the planner. My scores may look higher than your scores or lower than your scores, for no objective reasons whatsoever. It's just kind of like a vibes thing. So just remember, don't compare your scores to anyone else, and just kind of think about it, how it relates to your life. And if it makes you feel really bad to see low scores, you don't have to give yourself low scores to see growth. But do try and be honest with yourself, because it is really fun to see like improvement. When I look at this throughout the year, I just look at what my number was last time, and I think kind of like, was it better this past quarter or worse, or how am I feeling about it? How much better am I feeling about it? And again, this is just a very subjective process intended to keep you thinking about your life throughout the year and thinking about your life with regards to the progress you've made on the various areas. So then I traced that in with the black marker. I wrote my scores, my rounded scores, in the little dot marker bubbles there. And then I am setting myself a goal. Again, this is super subjective. I'm setting myself a goal on each category. And this year, for the first time, I decided that there were categories where I am just comfortable with staying the same throughout the whole year. I don't need to see growth there. I just want to maintain that. Something like financial. All of my goals are maintenance goals there. I just want to feel the same way about my finances this year that I did last year. Then I dove right into the intentions page. I find this page so much easier than I used to after completing the year-end reflections process. I think doing that whole workbook and also talking through all of my goals out loud on a YouTube video really helps me focus in on my intentions for the next year. And the past 2 years, I've been able to do this with just one rough draft and then write to my final copy, which is really great. I really like this, and this is basically my brainstorming sheet for my word of the year. I look at the words that I'm using consistently throughout this and that start to jump out at me. It's just a really fun practice, and I do return to this page often just to like kind of check in with my goals and think about how things are going throughout the year and whether my monthly goals and weekly actions are building towards this vision. Throughout the intentions page, it really made me realize I have basically two main themes for this year. One is around building stronger relationships, closer relationships, and the other is around being really systematic with my routines and habits in order to accomplish more. Throughout my day, in the house, I have various things that kind of fit into both of those buckets, but overall, those are my main two themes for my goals for the year. As I started to write more and more, I started to look for words that were coming up really often, especially in the more positively slanted questions. And some of those words were consistency, balance, systematic, routines, proactive, engaged, aware, available, thoughtful, just all kinds of different words. And then that kind of became my brainstorming session for my word of the year. I almost went with balance, but I didn't feel like it really dug into those two themes, even though I am trying to build a very balanced life. So in the end, I ended up going with a word that is not on this page at all, but that I just really feels like sums up so many of those words that I used. And that word is awake. I am so happy with this. I love to have like a kind of quirky word, something that's not necessarily going to appear on a word of the year list. I don't know why. I just love that. that my first ever word of the year was play, and I absolutely love that. Last year was explore, and I said in my reflections video I didn't feel like it really resonated with me. I feel like that's a more conventional choice, so I'm really happy with awake. We'll see how I feel connected to it at the end of the year, but I'm going to read you what my word means to me, which I'm going to write in at the bottom. I am present, aware, and engaged with my life. I am actively building towards the things I want, big and small. That is basically my mission statement for the year, and even more than my word of the year, that little paragraph each year just means so much to me and is really my focus on everything. So that will be my guiding principle here, and I'm really happy with it. I really feel like it sums up my whole intentions page. From a functional and decorative perspective here, I used the dot markers and just kind of went crazy with them on the word of the year. And then after I finished writing out that little mantra for the year, I'm going to go back through with my Moxie markers, my highlighters, and I'm just going to color code this. It's impossible to color code this like exactly to the life area just because there's so much overlap between the life areas when it comes to like my reflections and each of these words. So I kind of use that as like a guiding starting point, but also just wanted to look really pretty, bright and colorful and very MakseLife rainbow. All right, so now I am ready to set up my goals. It's actually the next day now. I wanted to, one, just sit with my intentions for a little while, and then two, revisit my notes on my goals and just tweak some phrasing and different things that I was thinking. I'm really happy with where that stands now. I know that is incredibly messy. We're gonna get it in here all neat and tidy though. If you are new to MakseLife, to goal setting, I highly suggest reviewing all of this information. There's some really good tips around here in goal setting. A lot of it is not new. You know, if you are familiar with any kind of goal setting framework, the things that I really like about the MakseLife system and specifically is one, MakseLife always emphasizes that you can change your goals at any time, even after they're set. If they're not working you, if they're not serving you, you can feel free to adjust them. And I also like the breakdown. There's also 3 different types of goals. I absolutely love this framework here, the stretch goals, progress goals, and maintenance goals. So stretch goals are like really big goals. MakseLife recommends having 1 to 3 per year. When we go through, I will share what my stretch goals are. Progress goals are just like good working goals. And then maintenance goals are, I have this thing that really works well in my life and I want to maintain them. And that is 100% valid as a type of goal to have. And it's something that's good and helpful. So a lot of my goals will also be maintenance goals. Again, this is my 3rd year in the system. A lot of what I want to do next year is live the systems that I've already built, and that is still worthy and valid to put in my goals. This page has some tips from goal setting that talks about being like specific and timely and all stuff like that. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really do that in my annual goals. It does not work for me. You will see that as we move through, and I will give you some examples, but I tend to keep my annual goals very long-term vision, very touchy-feely, the way I want to feel about something, the way I want to approach something, very non-specific. And I find that a lot more helpful and manageable. And it's one of the reasons why my annual goals, with the exception of 1 or 2 things, still really resonate with me at the end of the year. Again, it's my long-term vision. Where I get specific and timely and measurable and all of those other things is in my monthly goals and in my weekly actions. There's also tips here about what your long-term goals, how to break things down between your long-term goals and your monthly goals and weekly actions. You can also find the reflections questions here that go with the weekly actions each week if you're doing reflections. And then this list here has a really helpful list of words that belong in each category. If you really don't know where something's going to belong in between the categories, because of course there's a ton of overlap between the categories. Again, there's no right answer, but this list can really help you kind of section that off in your mind. I'm also going to keep my feelings and emotions wheels handy. This has just like a lot of different synonyms or more specific words for some kind of feeling or need, and I thought that that would be handy to help because I did notice that I use like the same 4 words in my goals so many times. But yeah, so we're going to dive in. I will walk you through my process and also share some of my specific annual goals during this. And again, this is going to be a voiceover portion, so let's throw it over. Before we dive into the specifics of the goals and my overall goal setting philosophy, I want to talk about the specifics of getting them onto the physical page. I do have a notes page where I have all of my phrasing pretty much finalized that I'm copying them off of. But when I went to go and set them in the page, I didn't actually do any pre-brainstorming about the layout of the box and how I wanted things to look on it. But I knew that I really liked what I had done last year, so I was going to work with a similar kind of aesthetic and style. That being said, I immediately started with just a huge disaster of multiple misspellings of the word rhythm, which I don't know what happened. I just kept writing it wrong. And that made me kind of rethink about where I was going to put things on the page. So I'm not going to use the little line at the bottom this year that says, how will my life improve by reaching these whatever category goals? And I'm so happy with that decision. I never liked that part of the goal setting process. Even the first year that I did this, I didn't find it especially helpful. So happy to let go of that and not have to brainstorm an idea for that. So instead of having a sentence for my focus for each category, I come up with a one word that's kind of a sub word of the year that really sums up with that category. I chose these words for that category after I set the goals in them. I just kind of thought about a word that really brought the whole idea together. So that is going to go down at the bottom underneath the washi. This washi is from MakseLife, and all of the markers I'm using are also from MakseLife. The dot and highlighters, love all of the matching colors. And the pen that I'm writing with is a Zebra Sarasa Dry, which just has a really bold tip. It is a 0.7 pen, but I think it just writes in a way that looks a little bit bolder, and I've been having a lot of fun with that pen lately. On the intentions page, I did use my Zebra Sarasa clip in a 0.5. That is my favorite small writing pen. I also just tried to write really slowly and be very intentional with how I was writing. That way I could stay neat, and whenever my hand started to feel tired, I took a break. I really do want these to look beautiful because I return to them so many times throughout the year, and I just think it makes it really special. So that is why I am so focused on my handwriting. For me, the personal category is a little bit of a catch-all for the other categories. Typically when I set goals, I do this category last, and anything that is still on my list that I can't quite put into another category goes in here. In general though, it is things that I do for myself, like my hobbies and my self-care, but also it is the things that keep me moving throughout my day, throughout my week, throughout my life. So a lot of my habits go in here, routines, planning goes in here, goal setting goes in here. That is kind of the focus of this category. My word for this category this year is rhythm. It's something that I've thought a lot about. I really want to focus this year on how I move throughout my day, what kinds of things I'm doing, and maintaining the balance of my day, not focusing in on one area specifically, just keeping myself moving throughout the day so that I'm accomplishing the things that I want to accomplish. And that's movement as in how I get from one task to the next, not physical movement of my body, which goes into a different goal setting category. I have 3 specific goals in this category. The one at the top is about maintaining balance. The one on the left is about building routines. And the one on the right is about being really proactive with planning, scheduling, and utilizing systems we already have and creating new systems. And all 3 of these are probably on the borderline between progress and maintenance goals. Next, for fun and recreation, my word is the same as it was last year, and that is scheduled. And I am also returning to my absolute favorite goal. So I really have 2 goals in this category, and then one has a bunch of little subheadings, which you will see. But the goal that I'm returning to, which has actually, I believe, been a goal in my MakseLife planner all 3 years, is scheduled fun. This is the goal that has changed my life by more than anything else that I have done in the past, I don't even know how long. This was my big stretch goal, my first year in MakseLife. At this point, it's a maintenance goal. I love this. Basically, anytime we have downtime, weekends, any breaks, things like that, I try and have plans as much as humanly possible. Get us out of the house, us, the kids, everyone, as much plans as we can possibly have. Make our days really jam-packed with fun when we are all together as a family so that we're not just staying home. And then when we have to stay home, having activities and different things planned to keep the kids busy and entertained. So we've got plans, activities, parties and hosting events. And then this year I really want to focus on like more friend type events, like play dates for the kids, and then also stuff for myself with my friends, and then also independent projects for things when we're at home. The kids are getting older, they can do more things by themselves. So really focusing in on that as well and help them build those skills. As a sort of sub goal of the scheduled fun goal, I also put in something around kid-free plans with my husband and also with my own friends. That's really important to me this year and relates to one of my main stretch goals, which will be in the family and relationships category. And then on the other side of the page here, we've got my vacation goal. So actually functionally, this category is pretty similar to how it was last year. And then I just wrote vacation and adventures in the middle, and then just kind of started listing out some of the things that we already have planned, that we've been thinking about, and just like other things that I'd like to do throughout the year. This is my favorite category. I think it is so underrated. What I always try and tell myself now is that life is supposed to be fun, and it is worthwhile to set real goals in this category. This is probably also the category that has my most concrete goals, this and financial. And again, both of those are categories where I now feel really, really comfortable, and I'm able to set those kind of more concrete goals in this area without it feeling too overwhelming or like I'm setting myself up for failure. Next up in the work and learning category, this was where one of my main stretch goals last year was, and it's also the area where I feel like I made the most improvement, was the most accomplished last year. So going into this year, things are feeling very different than they were last year in this category, and I'm also making some structural changes to this category. I started to write goals for my freelance business and also for my social media channels, which are the two main things that I put in this category. And what I realized is thematically, there were some really big overlaps between the goals that I wanted to set for both of those, and then I was just kind of using some specific language for both of those things, but I could tie them together with three main goals, and that's what's going in here. So you might see on my weekly actions or on my monthly goals things that are more specific to one or the other, but overall for my annual goals, what I'm going to do is have this be thematic of the category in general and related to both of those pursuits. If I feel like I am outgrowing this space, particularly with the social media stuff, I will actually pull my weekly actions for that or monthly goals for that out of the MakseLife planner, and I will put that in my Laurel Denise planner. I do have a separate social media and content planner. I don't have a separate work planner, so I'm going to prioritize space-wise freelance business stuff in my MakseLife itself. My goals in this category are definitely a little bit more on the subjective side. I feel like even though I made such strong progress last year, I really do think I'm still in like kind of the exploration phase of this category, and I just felt more comfortable approaching this as how I want to approach things throughout the year, what I want to feel about my work over the year, rather than making things so concrete. So I have 3 goals in this category, and my overarching word is balance. And really what that means to me is finding the balance between growth on both, finding the balance between the two pursuits, my freelance business and social media, and also just finding the balance between this category in general, between work in general, and the rest of my life. And my 3 goals are grow while maintaining times to pursue other things, pursue ideas, opportunities, and projects that serve what I'm building, and be thoughtful and strategic with what I say yes to and what I say no to. Respect my time. And I'm really happy with the wording on these goals and how they came together, and I really think that they apply perfectly to both my freelance business and also to my social media channels. And then throughout the year, I can just set monthly goals or weekly actions that tie back specifically to these goals that are just more overarching and apply to both, or that are more specific to one or the other. I've also just really been trying to distinguish the difference between a goal and a project in this category, which is very difficult for me to do on a day-to-day basis because there is definitely overlap between them, but social media itself is very project-based, and then also my freelance business is like extremely project-based. So sometimes I feel like I'm just writing specific projects in my weekly actions or in my monthly goals, and is that necessarily the best use of that space versus how it connects thematically back to the annual goals? So that's going to be a really big focus of mine this year when I'm writing goals in this category. I did take a pause after the work and learning category, and then I came back to keep going, keep writing. Again, all of these goals were set beforehand. I had already come up with the phrasing. This this whole process here is just me transferring it into the planner, making it look really nice, and maybe adjusting one or two words here and there. But in general, even the phrasing on these goals has already been set. This is my stretch goal category for the year. So this is really where I want to be spending a lot of my focus on what I'm building this year. I have 3 goals in this category. 2 are extremely connected to each other. My word overall and the theme is build, and I really think that's very reflective of what I'm doing here. So my first 2 goals are more kid-focused, family-focused, and they are teach our children perseverance, independence, and confidence. And then the second goal on the right is kind of how I want to approach this, taking a more thoughtful and conversational approach to parenting, kind of starting to transition out of that toddler style of parenting into something that's more appropriate for my kids now that they're a little bit older, and just something that involves like talking to them a little bit more now that they're a little bit older, and also supporting them more as individuals rather than taking a one-size-fits-all approach to kind of discipline and parenting, which is more how we approach toddler parenting. This feels kind of at the borderline between a progress and a stretch goal. We've definitely started with this, but I really want to dig into it for the next year. And then the other goal, which is not related to my kids, is related to my own relationships with other adults, is to grow my own support network and pursue meaningful connections with friends. One thing that really for me came out of the reflections process at the end of the year is that while we have a lot of familial support and other kinds of like help and support, I don't really have a large emotional support network. It's pretty much just my husband, and that feels like maybe not the best approach to life. I love my husband. He's amazing and wonderful, and he should definitely be my main emotional support person, but I could probably use some renewing of my friendships and building up of close friendships to build out that network. I will be that for other people. I am willing to do that, but also I think that I probably need that for myself. And this one is very difficult for me. I find it very difficult to be vulnerable with anyone, and at this point, anyone who's not my husband. So this to me is definitely a stretch goal, and is probably my biggest stretch goal of the year. Moving on to the next page here and to the next category, which is health and wellness. And if you saw my reflections video, you may know that this is the category that I find most difficult for setting goals and also to talk about. My word for this year in this category is repair. I feel like I am ready to dip my toes into the next part of my healing journey in this category. Prior to MakseLife and, even prior to the planner community, I did a lot of work on myself in healing my relationship with this category. This is probably where I have the most lingering trauma. And really since then, I've taken like a very status quo approach to this category and just set like very minor goals here and made them very unconcrete. That way I just feel like I'm protecting my own mental health, and I've just decided that I want to keep doing that, but I'm ready to take things a little bit further. I know that I need to move extremely slowly in this category, check in with myself, make sure that this still feels like it's heading in a positive direction and where I want to go, and not backsliding into something else. So we're just going to kind of see how this feels throughout the year, and if I feel like I need to back off from this, I absolutely will. I am authorizing myself to do that now, giving myself that power. One of my goals in this category actually just is to improve my relationship with this category and just the general health establishment. Then continuing on and also keeping things nice and vague, I said build and maintain routines that help me live my best life. I am thinking about all different kinds of things here, from like daily movement and also skincare, bedtime, just basically all of the routines that I worked on last year, just continuing on with those and building out new ones as they become necessary. I didn't list them out specifically, but I definitely had some in mind while I was writing this. So I think this is a really good example of what I mean when I say I'm going to keep things a little bit more vague and approach or mindset based in my annual goals. And then in my monthly goals, I'm going to get a lot more specific. And in my weekly actions, I'm going to get really specific. So if I'm talking about building and maintaining routines, I'm not going to list them out in my annual goals. I don't know what's going to best serve me throughout the year. And I don't want to say I'm going to set an alarm every day, because sometimes I need that and sometimes I don't. But if there's a week where I feel like I really need that alarm to help me wake up in the morning, that's going to go on my weekly action items. That's going to be very concrete in there. And likewise, at different points in the year, I'll focus more on specific routines. Like I might have a really strong skincare focus in January because that's something that's been on my mind. And then, maybe I need to think more about my dental routine later in the year, and then that will go on my monthly on my monthly goals or my weekly action items. So that's kind of how I take things from abstract in my annual goals to really concrete and measurable in my weekly actions. Bridging the other two goals together, my third goal in this category is just to be proactive with my own health, and then I just listed out some examples underneath that. I think that really just ties these two things together, and also how I'm really feeling about the category in general. Next up, we have the spiritual and personal growth category. Now, my focus in this category always tends to be around mindset, and that is actually my word for this category as well. It also was last year. Even though mental health is 100% health, and you can absolutely put it in the health and wellness category, for me, it's really helpful to have those kinds of practices a little bit more distinct than other health stuff, which is why I just really like them in this spiritual and personal growth category. In general, I've spoken about this in the past. I really don't like the word spiritual. It's not a word that I feel remotely connected with, and it's honestly one that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But over the past couple of years, I've definitely gotten over that discomfort with the category, and I just kind of think if you are not a person who is necessarily religious or spiritual, and that is not like a word that resonates with you, you just kind of have to define what this category means to you outside of that context, which I also think is completely acceptable and valid within the MakseLife framework, and also something that Sierra has spoken about. And if you see the different words that are listed in the things to consider sheet, there's plenty of stuff outside of that kind of more traditionally spiritual or religious space that belongs in this category that resonates with me a lot more strongly, like journaling, compassion for self, self-actualization, purpose, charity, and volunteering. So for me, one thing that I love to do in this category is write mantras, and I had one last year, and I'm using the same framework for it this year, but I did just change the wording on it a little bit. So that's going to be let go of what you can't control and focus on what you can and how you react. So the how you react part is what I added this year. This was an extremely helpful mantra for me last year, and I wanted to bring it back, but just kind of expand on it a little. And another thing that I really love in this category is this category kind of becomes my area to protect myself from when the work on goals in other categories gets really tough or gets really emotional. So this is the life area where I can use to kind of add in that layer of protection when I'm really digging deep into those relationship goals or into those health and wellness goals and making myself feel uncomfortable. I can retreat back into this life area when I need to. And I think that's really powerful and really helpful. And it also has helped me grow in those other areas while still like maintaining that peace and that level of comfort. So that is what the goal up in the left-hand corner is kind of all about there, that maintaining the boundaries between connections and my own personal boundaries. And then likewise in this category, I do put a goal around volunteering. I have really grown to love my volunteering work at the school, and I want to continue on with that this year. And then I kind of expanded that a little bit more this year just to make sure that I'm also passing on that passion, that love of volunteering to my own kids, and really just teaching them about like the benefits of giving back and just how rewarding that can be, and also how important it is to society as a whole. And then I also expanded the volunteering to just also like include financial contributions. I would like for us to donate more money this year than we did last year. So I thought that this was an appropriate place to add that in as well. Next up is the financial category, and this has always been my highest scoring life area from when I first started the MakseLife system and through now. Some of this is just privilege, some of this is background, some of this is just, it's a natural skill set for both me and my husband. We both work in like financially adjacent fields and have just high financial literacy. We also have very similar spending, budgeting, long-term plan philosophies, and really see eye to eye on this category in general, which is supremely helpful. Last year, during my recalibration of my scores effort, I tried to really push myself to grow a little bit in this category. I circled around with some different things, but ultimately I just like landed back where I started and just ended up with, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And that is what we are going with this year. It is all maintenance goals in here, and it is just like one goal. And then I listed out some specifics of this. Basically, utilize the systems we've already built, expand them where necessary, and just keep doing what we're doing. My camera did cut out there while I was working on this section. Apologies for that. You'll get a closer look at the goals at the end, but if you have any questions about this or anything else, feel free to leave them in the comments. The last category is the physical environment category. I accidentally mixed up the washies at first in this one, so then I did have to pull that up and fix it. Super easy to do, but I just got a little bit confused between the health and wellness and the physical environment colors. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to see under the light. The washies themselves definitely look very different. I do think that the lighter health and wellness color washi matches really well with the physical environment category, like the print on the page though. Anyway, this category is the home of my final stretch goal, and one that I'm really excited for. It's very in my wheelhouse, and it's a stretch goal that I feel very comfortable pursuing, so nice little bit of a different pace compared to my other stretch goals. But that is to create a new home cleaning, maintenance, and project management system. What we were doing last year really was not working for us, and I haven't really found anything that I like, so I'm going to be creating this for myself and for our home, and I will of course be bringing you along on that journey. I'm really excited about it. In general, my word for this category is systematic, which is exactly how I want to approach that process and other things as well. I also have a goal in here just around building out and maintaining and keeping up with our daily, weekly, and monthly like cleaning routines, things that help us stay on top of all the housework, etc. So bringing that in, that is more of a maintenance goal, at least for the day-to-day stuff, and then that will incorporate with my big stretch goal for the larger type projects. And then my final goal in this area is kind of the same as one I had last year around house projects, except for when I set my goals last year, my husband and I had actually already been through our specific house projects for the year and agreed on that. We have not done that at this point yet, which is totally fine. I still wanted to have that in as a goal, but I didn't have the specific projects to list out. So I just made it a little bit more vague and just said, create the project list and then accomplish it. Again, is another example of how I can kind of make things vague in my annual goals. And then in my monthly goals and weekly actions, I will get a lot more specific with this. I will also, create that physical list somewhere. It just won't be on my goals page here. And then we'll work throughout the year to accomplish those home projects that we have our eye on. And those are my 2024 annual goals and how I set them up in my MakseLife quarterly companion notebooks. All right, that is it for my annual goals, and that is it for this video. I am so happy to have this done. It feels so amazing to have this all out on the page, and I also think it came together absolutely beautifully. So here is the first page with the first 4 life areas, and then here is my second page here with the other 4 life areas. There is also the vision board, which I like to do a stickering mind map of the year. This is my one from last year. I will be setting that up, and that will actually be in my Plan Miss Wrap video. I'm gonna set that all up on that video and also answer some questions I have from you all about goal setting and my goal setting process. So that should be really fun. So stay tuned for that. But for right now, that is it for today and it for my annual goals. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your word of the year down in the comments below if you have one. Always super fun to hear people's words. Come back tomorrow for another Plan Miss video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And you can also check me out on Instagram and TikTok at MyCraftyPlans for even more planner fun. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye.